The NFL has some of the most exciting plays and biggest stars that American football can offer. The action on the field, the big plays, and the crazy finishes are just some of the things that keep us continuously coming back every year and make us diehard fans specifically become the Michael Scott meme where he's ready to get hurt all over again. My glazing of the NFL aside, this league is far from perfect. And while I have endless gripes with the game, I decided to give just 10 things I believe are wrong with the NFL today. Now, before my old man yells at cloud ass list begins, I just want to let y'all know this is Triple DS. Please consider subscribing. We post weekly content on this channel as well as a weekly pick'em where I actually went perfect at one point.
That was months ago. Let it go.
With this first one, I want to say that this is a very universal feeling that we have as NFL fans. But for number one on my list, it has to be that referees get way too involved, specifically at the end or at critical moments in an NFL game. How often has a game gotten so close to the end, only for a ref to throw a nonsensical flag, or on the flip side, completely miss an obvious call? I can think of endless amounts of calls that go in favor of the Chiefs, so don't even get me started. But take this year's game between the Rams and the Vikings, for example. Sam Darnold and the Minnesota offense were down by a single score and had to go the length of the field to tie it up. Only, they wouldn't even get the chance, as LA's Byron Young would take Darnold down for the safety. The problem here? The refs completely missed one of the most obvious face mask penalties that would have nullified the safety and would have given the Vikings 15 yards and a first down. Instead, they would lose by 10 in a game that came down to a penalty. And I think something has to be done to hold these refs accountable. Maybe something like missing flagrant calls like the Darnold one, or throwing phantom calls that just aren't there. I think there should be some sort of fine or something like that that will make the refs be held more accountable. Because this is getting ridiculous. Yeah, Minnesota had a long ways to go, and while it was improbable, it's not impossible. What sucks is they didn't even get the chance to actually see if they could pull it off. Refs need to be held to a standard, and I don't know how else to do it other than fining them or something where they have to pay a lot more attention. This next one really bugs me because in my head, there's no reason that this shouldn't already exist unless I'm tripping and there is an actual, how can I say this, legal way to do this. But how is there not a Sunday ticket subscription for individual teams? The price for Sunday ticket this year was $635 in week 1, and that didn't even include Red Zone. I'd imagine this keeps people from buying the subscription because a lot of us don't want to spend $635, especially since most of the time you're just trying to watch your favorite team specifically. If there was a subscription for the Cincinnati Bengals for something like $150 or maybe even $200, although I'm pushing it there, I think a lot more people who were pushed off of the idea of getting it all together would actually buy it for an individual team. Maybe someone has a better idea, but buying the full package just to watch the Giants versus the Panthers in Germany just doesn't sit right with me. This next one I doubt will ever change, but have you ever tried to get someone who has never watched a game of football to watch for the first time? If you have, what's the first thing they may have said? In my experience, the main thing that they all say is, why does the game keep stopping? If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you know that the NFL takes an insane amount of commercial breaks in every single game. To put it into perspective, the average NFL game is 3 hours, and about 25% of that time is spent on commercials. Meaning you spend about 45 minutes of those 3 hours just watching commercials. There's timeouts, end of quarters, end of halves, injury timeouts, switching possession. A team can score with 5 seconds left on the clock in the first quarter, for example. Kick the extra point. Then the game goes to commercial. They will follow that up with one play by the other team, then go back to another commercial. Like, it's insane. The reason I don't see this ending is because this is where a massive chunk of the revenue comes from for the NFL. As fans, we kind of get used to it, but when you notice, it can get frustrating, and it can get especially frustrating for someone who may be watching for the very first time. This one may just be one you have to accept, and it is just what it is. This is not going to change. The NFL won't change this because the money will always keep raking in. So this next one will be a little bit tricky. I will try to explain myself as best I can, so bear with me here. But don't you find it annoying that every single mid-tier and above quarterback that's up for a new contract has to be the one that resets the market? A few years ago, Patrick Mahomes reset the market by signing a 10-year, $500 million contract. Since then, Mahomes doesn't even crack the top 10 in terms of cap hits. Despite what you feel about his performance thus far this season, you can't tell me that Dak Prescott, who's getting paid $60 million, or Trevor Lawrence, who's getting paid $55 million, are even on his level. And don't even get me started on Deshaun Watson. Or get me started on it, it's the Cleveland Browns. Some guys, I get it. They may be regarded as one of the best in the league, but with others, I think you need a reality check and realize you taking this money means you have to compensate for pieces lost due to your contract. Some guys can handle that. Other guys will traject the team into a dark future. Looking at you, Dallas.
Here we go! Buck, here we go!
This is another that will probably never change though, as a franchise quarterback can make or break your team. So teams will always hand out the money as long as there is a slim chance that they can take you to the promised land. And what quarterback isn't gonna turn down 60 mil?
5.
This is more of a small one, but it sucks that there's no such thing as a color rush game anymore. I was personally a huge fan of this theme. It was aesthetically pleasing to me, and it was good revenue for the NFL, as fans would love to buy the new look jerseys. However, the color rush game was discontinued in 2018, and while there were a variety of factors, a big reason I saw was that it was very difficult for colorblind people to keep up, as for some, depending on what team was playing, could look like they were wearing the same exact thing. An example of this was the Bills and Jets game, where the Bills rocked red and the Jets rocked green, but for some, it did look like they were both wearing the same exact color. So I get why this was discontinued, and to compensate, some teams use their color rush unis as alternates instead. It's just kind of a small gripe, but still bothers me.
6.
For my next gripe with the NFL, we have to go with how teams are so impatient with their young players. Let's take QBs to be specific. QBs have the toughest position to play, as they have to know the playbook inside and out, make split-second decisions pre-snap and during the play itself, and sometimes they weren't even the most polished product when they were coming out of college. Yet we see it time and time again. A guy gets thrust into the lineup and he's supposed to just somehow make magic. The only reason I think teams do it is because it works. But sometimes. For every CJ Stroud, you get a Bryce Young. For every Josh Allen thrust into the starting lineup, you'll get a Josh Rosen. When you give a guy time to sit and watch, they can become amazing. Just look at Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes. All of these guys took at least a season to develop behind a veteran, and these quarterbacks are now in the upper echelon. I also understand why some teams feel like they have to thrust their QB in there. So for some coaches, it's a do or die season, so I get it, but it's just so annoying how they feel that much pressure when they're clearly in a rebuild mode, and I can't look any further than the Carolina Panthers, who were clearly rebuilding, and Bryce Young had next to nothing in terms of an offense, yet his head coach was fired before his first season was even completed during his rookie year. I guess that's just business for you though.
7.
Now for this next one, I don't necessarily hate this, but I think this could be drastically better. What I'm talking about is the NFL draft being a lottery draft similar to the NBA. Now, if you aren't familiar with this term draft lottery, it just means you aren't guaranteed the first overall pick simply by being the worst team in the league. We all know NFL players and coaches do their best week in and week out. For the most part, they are always taking it one game at a time. Now, the front offices may be a different story. Often, they are looking to the future to get ahead. If a team isn't doing well, you'll see teams trade their best players for draft capital. Like we just saw with the Panthers and the Saints, they just gave away all their assets to kind of essentially reset. And if you look far back enough, you remember that former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores was told to intentionally lose games for a cash prize. A draft lottery will prevent teams from tanking intentionally, as losing won't guarantee anything. But I do understand that this one may be slightly divisive. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this potential change.
8.
Now, from one opinion that may be divisive, I think this next one can be universally agreed on. At least I think so. I can't stand that both teams don't get an opportunity to get the ball in overtime. In overtime, if a team that gets the ball first scores a touchdown, they win the game without the other team ever getting a chance to touch the ball. Think of how devastating this is if both teams are hot and the game is a 35-35 thriller, where you know the first team that will get the ball is gonna score. Now, I will say that we have it better than what it used to be, as back in the day, the first team only needed a field goal to win the game, so at least they bumped the requirement up to a TD. I'm sure the players agree with this too. Just look at Baker's reaction when the Chiefs won the coin toss on this Monday Night Football game. I'd love to hear someone oppose this idea in the comments below. If it's interesting enough, we can have a back and forth.
9.
You know what? Get y'all asses back here, refs. I'm not done with you. You guys are going for another round in my complaints about the NFL. That's right. We're going to talk about the refs one more time. They get a second spot on this list because that's just how much they need to change, in my opinion. So you know what? Give me that scorpion. Get over here, because I'm not done with y'all yet. I cannot, and I mean cannot, stand the fact that the Chiefs get every single call to go in their favor. Yeah, we're getting real specific with this complaint about the NFL. You can't tell me that in the most important moments of every game that they play, the Chiefs don't get a call if the play doesn't go their way. Their right tackle is jumping too early on damn near every play. Doesn't get called back. The pass interference against the Bengals doesn't get thrown until the wide receiver doesn't make the play. The non-call when Kyle Pitts is absolutely smothered in the end zone, the Falcons win if they can get that call. That's just this season. It's crazy how many times they're getting calls or no calls in their favor. I don't know if it's the Chiefs or if it's Taylor Swift paying the refs, but somebody is getting paid for these damn games.
10.
And my final complaint of this video, and that being Taylor Swift herself. Before I get into it, I understand why they're doing it. But having said that, most NFL fans that were already here know who Taylor Swift is, but don't care to see her. You know why? Because she's not actually playing the game. The hype video itself that the NFL produced for the 2024 season had three clips of Taylor Swift in it. This is crazy because the NFL is obviously doing this because she's bringing fans to the game, and more fans equal more money. But is it really that many fans? You'd think she's on the payroll, which she probably is, but I digress. I don't need to see Taylor Swift more than once a game. And me, I'm being very generous in even saying just that. But that's my list, ladies and gentlemen. What do you guys think? What's another problem that the NFL might have? If you enjoyed this video and you're still here, please consider subscribing. Thank you guys always for your support. But until next time, y'all, shaboy!